So welcome back to KTF TV. In this episode, we're going to be talking about animation and keyframing and getting used to animating and keyframing still objects. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to make a dodgeball fly across our screen. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab our dodgeball. As you see, I have a dodgeball already loaded here. We're going to drag it to our timeline, shrink it down to about 5 seconds. And 5 seconds, one frame, and that's good enough. And we're going to take it, select it, and we're just going to go and shrink it down. And we're going to go and drag the dodgeball. We want to fly from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. So we'll go and drag it to where we want to start. Go over here to our little diamond. And our diamond is our keyframe, or our keyframe adder. So let's just add our keyframes. So we're going to go and right click it, and we're going to select keyframe all. Then we're going to drag our image. Or before we drag it, we're going to take our timeline, or our scrubber, drag it to the end of the image, grab our last frame, and just drag it, and as you see, a purple line appears. This purple line indicates motion. So now, if we take a look at it, our dodgeball flies across the screen. Pretty cool. However, let's make this look a little bit more realistic. We're going to drag our scrubber halfway, and we're going to take our dodgeball and drag it up. And by doing so, this is going to go ahead and allow us to have an upward motion. However, with this upward motion, it's pretty sharp, not the way a dodgeball would fly through the air. So what we're going to do, we're going to select this new keyframe indicated by the green box, select it, and hit linear. This is going to make a Bezier curve, which allows us to have a more of a curved arc angle, or curved arc motion that the dodgeball flies. Now that looks a little bit more realistic. Now with this Bezier curve, we can select the dodgeball, and we can do a couple things. We can make it fly in all sorts of curvy directions, so we can make it do something like what you see on the screen. So let's go and play that, see what that looks like. See, it goes up, and then back down, and then around. But for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and leave it. That's just going to arc up in the air. And we can go ahead and drag this up, and we'll tighten this up a little bit. There we go. So now that gives us more of like a motion of it flying through the air. However, it doesn't really look too real because typically a ball spins through the air. So to spin, we're going to double click our image. It's going to show up in our in our viewer, and we're going to click motion. And from here, we're going to select the first keyframe, and we're already on it, as we can see by the green dots. And we're going to go ahead and go to the last keyframe by clicking our arrows, just scrubbing through the keyframes. And our last keyframe is here, and we're going to go ahead and add a rotational keyframe. And we're just going to go and spin this a couple times to, let's say, 1080. That works. And now what we'll see here is that our dodgeball now spins through the air. And that is the basics of throwing a dodgeball through the air. Now let's go ahead and combine a couple other things. In a previous video, I showed you how to crack a screen, okay? But now let's go ahead and add that dodgeball animation to the crack screen. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to take our dodgeball, and we'll drag it here. We're going to go ahead and shrink it down to about 3 seconds. And we're going to shrink down the dodgeball itself. Drag it off to the left. And we're going to go and create our keyframe. Do a keyframe at the end. And we'll drag our dodgeball to where we want the screen to be cracked. We'll say right about here in the center. Now I've already got a cracked image. If you were watching a previous lesson, you saw how to crack the screen. We'll go ahead and drag the image into the timeline. Now we want our dodgeball up in track 2, so it's above our cracked image. And we'll go ahead and drag out and expand out our dodgeball throwing. And now what we'll see is our dodgeball flying through the air and cracking the screen. Alright, now let's go and center that screen cracking a little bit so it looks more like it cracked it. Cool, it looks good. And let's go ahead and throw a little bit of rotation into here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back. We have 2 keyframes. We'll add one, so we'll start off at the beginning of 0 for our rotational keyframe, go to the last rotation that we want, and we'll say we'll throw in 707. Great, okay. So now let's go and see what this looks like. It looks like a dodgeball is being hurled through the air. And then all of a sudden it stops. So let's go back to our last keyframe here. And we're going to go ahead and do a blade tool. And as we see there, now it's cracked. We'll go ahead and do a blade tool. We're going to cut this image and we're going to drag this so that these aren't joining together. All right, and then we'll join them back. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take our image, double click it, and we're going to get rid of all of our keyframes. Okay, all of our keyframes are gotten rid of now. And how we did that was we clicked the X. Our X's here in our motion tab in our viewer allow us to put keyframes in. So we can click add keyframes as we like. If we don't want those keyframes, we just can delete them all at once. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our dodgeball. We're going to do a little more animation. We're going to shrink this down. Add another keyframe to our new dodgeball that we just created. Add another keyframe. Let's get on the screen. So now we're at the end, we're going to add another keyframe and drag it down, and now what it's going to look like is our dodgeball fell off the screen. Let's go and take a look at what the end result is. There we go, and it looks like the dodgeball cracked the screen. Of course, you can also throw in some sound effects like I did in a previous video. I threw in a sound effect of the screen cracking, created a really nice effect. And that is basics to animation, keyframing, and how to throw a dodgeball across the screen.